Hi, everybody. It's Mike here.
Harry again.
And welcome to another day of Star Wars. Counting down. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas. Harry, the music, it's seeping through. It's in my head. I can't stop thinking about Star Wars. It's the John Williams score. It should be Christmas songs, but it's the John Williams score. What's happening to me? I can't get it out of my head. Do you feel the same way?
About Star
Is
Wars?
it a Star Wars Christmas? I think it is.
It's not a Star Wars Christmas. Despite recent news about that huge slate of um, shows coming out on Disney Plus, including getting Hayden Christensen back as Anakin or Darth Vader or whatever you're gonna call it, I'm just not filled with the Star Wars spirit. I think I've put it behind me. I'm happy that we're revisiting it here for the holidays for all the folks at home, but I just don't have it in me to have that spirit.
Well, let's talk about that, Harry. I think if you lost, if you don't have that spirit,
This has been very cathartic for
this
me.
is the chance. We're talking about every single inch of this franchise. We're working our way up there. You got to get it in. How do we get that light?
Well, it's not going to be by talking about the prequels, and we're now steadily in the middle of it because today we're talking about Attack of the Clones.
Well, we got to end up loving these prequels. I think.
Look, I love talking about them. Like I am just having a ball, revisiting memories, sharing our thoughts. So that's good enough for me. I'm having a blast.
We go in. I go in the movie theater, going, okay, I'm here. I got my ticket. Bring it. Bring it. Whatever you got. What's in your mind, have up there on the screen, and let me just roll with what you're throwing at me. That's what I came in Attack of the Clones with. And as we talked about before with Phantom Menace, we had the excitement leading up to that film. We were both a bit underwhelmed, to say the least. When the trailer was released for Attack of the Clones, were you excited to watch it?
I felt pretty burnt by Phantom Menace, and now we're 3 years after, and I think Star Wars for the most part, I felt burnt, I felt hurt. At this point now we're in college. Priorities are shifting all over the place. There's just other things, better movies out there to be focused on. And actually, I never saw the trailer. But I will tell you, I remember the day that the title was released. I was working my summer job, and I remember this guy was a big Star Wars fan, and he breaks the news to me, and he's like, "Attack of the Clones," and he kept saying it. He was like turning it over and over in his head and chewing on it to really make sense of it, or even to convince him that it sounded good. And immediately I was like, "That's terrible. That's a terrible title." And I totally got that George Lucas was trying to conjure up images of old sci-fi movies, old horror movies. But I just felt so let down because, deep down in my soul, in my heart of hearts, I thought, all right, Phantom Menace was terrible. We're going to turn the ship around. It's going to get really, really good from here on out. But then you hear that and you're like, he's still doing the same shit. Like, he didn't learn his lesson. But then I remember seeing some stills from the movie. It looked like, maybe Boba Fett was going to be in it or his dad or whatever. And it's like, all right, now we're going to get into the Clone Wars. Let's give this movie a shot. So we get into the theaters. But before that, what was your journey to the theater for this movie?
I do believe I saw the trailer. I mean, I was going to say, if you didn't see the trailer leading up to this film, that's the way to go, right? You're getting a complete, the mystery of like, ooh, I don't know anything. You didn't really get a glimpse of it. You're getting the whole meal before even getting a little sample of anything. That's actually a great way to go in a film, which is tough for me to still do. Because I always get that sampler. I got to get a little sample of some trailers right before a movie. And I know, actually, I remember when I saw the trailer, I do remember thinking that it still seemed too far away. But the funny thing was, time flew by and it showed up. I'm like, oh, Attack of the Clones came out. I'm going to go see that.
Yep.
When I watched the film, going to say, it doesn't happen often, fell asleep. I fell asleep in the movie toward the second, third act. I had a good nap. So I think it had a very strong beginning. And I was engaged at the very beginning of the film. It was great seeing that we were dealing with Obi-Wan and Anakin when he's grown up, what we were kind of really hoping for. But now you got to start that. Now you got to start from scratch in many ways, because now you've
That's
got
right.
this new actor stepping in. You got to have them start from scratch with the heavy lifting. And I do think with Hayden Christensen, it's tough. It's weird. I've rewatched this film recently. It's interesting seeing how it looks on Blu-ray, because Phantom Menace was shot on film. This was the first film to be shot on digital.
Right.
And my eyes are so familiar with it because we've been familiar with what that looks like for almost 2 decades. So I was like, oh, wow, it looks great. I think that the one thing I didn't really appreciate the first time I saw it was how great everything looked. I think what I enjoyed more this time rather than the first time I saw the film was just like even in the chase sequence, it looks great. I love the attention to detail George Lucas did pay to regarding the special effects, because I think more films today look even more fake than this film did. And this film came out almost 2 decades ago when it was just it was just diving into the digital, to that format. So I think I really appreciate it to the point where I'm like, man, I would watch this stuff again. I'm like, wow, was I totally off the boat? Was I totally so underwhelmed by Phantom Menace? You tell me, what was your experience like before I go further?
Yeah. So seeing the movie, I will say that it was better than Phantom Menace. But again, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't good. I was very disappointed, as I think most people were, with Hayden Christensen's performance. But I don't fault him. I think he had a lot to do, and I don't think it was fair to blame him too much.
Yeah, so, and
Certainly, right? There would probably be actors who could have done it.
well, did you see Life as a House?
No, I haven't.
Exactly. So he was picked, I think, based off the performance in that film. It came out the year prior to, and that's a more layered performance. Here, there aren't any layers. It's no subtext. This text, it seems like this is more of the direction he was given. And he was in Shattered Glass that came out fairly recently after this, and where he gives a more layered performance. And it just seems so weird how this is like this is like the anomaly. I don't want to say the only anomaly, because he was in Jumper and that wasn't a great movie either, and I vaguely remember it and I can't confirm if that's a good performance or not. Mm-hmm. It's another disconnect. We had a disconnect with the kid who played Anakin in the first one, and there's another one here. Is the disconnect Lucas really directing these actors? I don't know.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. I don't think he can really direct. I really don't think so. And I also feel like the only way that what Lucas was doing is he had to show glimpses of Anakin being able to become evil and turn to the dark side.
Right.
But the only way that Lucas saw fit to do that was by making him kind of a little whiny, a little sharp to, quick to snap. And those aren't necessarily, endearing qualities. So of course, you're going to criticize the actor, but that's what he's given. He's given this role where he has all this frustration and sadness, and that's how we're supposed to be convinced that he's going to turn to the dark side. And that's, I don't think that's what audiences want to see, really. I mean, that's not what I want to see.
It's not a compelling enough journey.
I agree. And we're now advanced the timeline of these movies by 10 years, right, between Phantom Menace and this one. So now you're really barreling down hard, and now jumping ahead, because I'm talking about compressed timelines. The Clone Wars don't really even start in this movie, and they're supposed to be so integral to this journey and to this origin of Darth Vader, and they don't even start until the very end of the movie, when Yoda ham-fistedly, very just awfully tells you that they've started. So that's a real issue. And then throughout the movie, you're jumping from planet to planet. You're going to all these places. It's hard for you to keep up. It's not that the movie's complicated, and you can keep up with it, but your brain isn't keeping up with it enough to say, none of this makes sense. It's only until after you leave the theater and you start to think about the movie where you're like, this doesn't make any sense. This movie is just all over the place. it's just trying to do too much. It's oh my
They
goodness.
split up the characters. You split up Obi-Wan and Anakin. So Anakin can go spend time with Padme. Spending time with Padme.
Right.
And while he's doing that, while that's occurring, then Obi-Wan is on this investigation. That's where he kind of leads up to Jango Fett, that whole, leading up to that battle between those two and the agenda with the clones and all that. So you're introduced to that. So I see Lucas is planting these seeds for everything to come, but there is, like I said, we briefly mentioned on the Menace episode, is that then you have scenes of like Obi-Wan showing up on this planet, walking through the doorway, having a seat, looking at the person who told him to sit down.
Right.
We've wasted, was it a minute and 15 seconds? What did we get? What's the value here? Not much. So it looks great, but I'm like, this dead air. I'm about to yawn. I've yawned 6 times in the last minute and 15 seconds. So that's what led to me falling asleep. This movie just lost me. Lost me early on the first time. As I've rewatched it, appreciating how great it looked, yeah, that did wear off, because then you get used to it. I do appreciate how, even with the special effects of the time, it looked more real than a lot of films do today. But that only goes so far. So I'm giving it its credit there. But I agree with you. I mean, I don't even agree with you that far. I mean, you went ahead and did the math to see if this all makes sense at the end of the day. I'm completely disengaged. I don't care. I don't care. And I should, because I really care. I do care. Like Ewan McGregor, I look at him on the screen and I'm like, he's worried. He's working his ass off. He's making it look effortless. I want to watch for Ewan McGregor. And then you got Yoda. And Yoda, we didn't actually talk too much about Yoda in Phantom Menace, but he looked pretty damn lifelike, as close as you can get in Phantom Menace there. Here,
Oh no,
still
not in the
working.
original one. He was a puppet. He looked terrible. If you're probably your recent watch, they've replaced him with CGI.
But he still look. Oh, right. So is
He
that
looks
all
really
washed from our
bad.
memory?
It,
Did we have
it's
that?
yeah. They use a foam puppet, and I wanted to mention how bad he looked in the previous episode, but we didn't get to that point. I'm mentioning it now. So yeah, if for anyone watching the movie now, if you go out and buy a copy or download it or stream it or however the hell you watch these movies these days, it's CGI Yoda.
CGI Yoda, like a sock with some hair on it. All right, that's interesting. And now I'm vaguely remembering when I bring up and I'm trying to think of something what it looked, and I think back to the original Phantom Menace trailer. I'm like, oh, you're right. There was some certain, because our baseline was just what Yoda looked like in Return of the Jedi and Empire.
And he looked way better, and that's mind-boggling. Why he looked worse as a puppet afterwards? Like, why were they better at it like 20 years ago, but like they weren't able to tackle it? I don't know.
Right, he very gaunt or something like that. Anyway, uh,
But
so
I want to say something actually before we move to ahead, because you talk about like laying the seeds down, and I think that's another problem with this movie, is that this movie isn't really telling a story. It's trying to set you up for another story. So that, to me, that's kind
Iron
of
Man 2
disrespectful.
syndrome.
Yeah, yeah, right. So when you watch a movie like that and it's just transparently trying to get you to the next movie, you're like, well, why am I watching this movie in the first place?
Yeah, you're right. It's like you're going, well, you're subconsciously thinking, well, this has got to pay off somehow, and you trust in the director that it will pay off. Did it pay off though? No, I don't remember. I don't remember
Well,
what
it just doesn't seem, it just didn't seem necessary. So clearly, with a lot of the Marvel movies, there are a lot of seeds, but generally speaking, I mean, and we can disagree. Generally speaking, those movies at least kind of stand on their own, and I feel like this particular movie is so preoccupied with ticking certain boxes. Got to get Anakin and Padme to fall in love. Got to get these clones going.
not earning
Gotta,
that either. Yeah, not earning
right.
that.
So I'm just gonna go through this checklist. Did we do it at the end of the day? I need a big battle, so we're gonna have this battle at the end. Kind of doesn't make sense. It's a little weird. It's a little confusing. But yeah, like, did we do it? Got it done. All right, perfect. Like, I accomplished all my goals as a filmmaker. But did you really make a movie that was compelling to watch, or that would people would respond to?
People do enjoy these films. A part of me does think, is now that we're 2 episodes deep into that long hiatus, People do enjoy them. I mean, the people who waited on those long lines for Phantom Menace, most of them probably came back and waited on the long lines for Attack of the Clones. Now, when they come out of that theater and they have the same experience that we had, are they just somehow drinking the Kool-Aid from the old episodes and just thinking, "Oh man, isn't it great this world"? Are they
I
fully?
think
I
some
don't.
of them are. Yeah, I think certainly quite a number of them are. Because, and then I'm not criticizing them. I think they
No, no, I'm
truly
not.
do love Star Wars,
Right.
and so they're
Listen,
getting something
I
from
love the
it.
fact that people love these movies. I wish that I can get that love. But my point of bringing that up is more of the fact that for episode 4, 5, and 6 so strong that it could make anyone tackling these episodes, whether it be George Lucas or anyone else, just as long as you're in that world, was it so strong that you can just coast off any story moving forward? Like you're
Yeah,
just so
for sure.
appreciative of the world that had been built that you're just like, oh man, I want to, these characters, these are new characters, that you're just less concerned about the story and what we normally come to expect from films to bring us. And that could be it. And again, I love the fact. I actually wish I got more of that because I would enjoy these films more. Instead I get a little bit distracted at times. I get distracted, bored to the point where I go, oh, that's Joel Edgerton. Joel Edgerton's in this movie. He's Owen Lars. And then you got Rose Byron's in this movie. Oh my God, I didn't know that the first time because I was asleep. But here's the thing. I hinted at this before, Harry. In terms of, and it's unfortunate I say, I don't normally think like this. I thought, what if episode 1, that was just the 2-hour movie, was crammed into just 1 hour? Like it was trimmed. You trimmed the fat. And then that story from when, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, leading up to seeing Anakin, the pod race, the battle with Darth Maul. If that was all compressed in just 1 hour of Phantom Menace, and then it just picked up like a chapter 2, an hour and a half maybe, and it was a 3-hour long movie. And the end of chapter 2 of Phantom Menace was the start of Attack of the Clones, when Anakin was older, the Hayden Christensen character. It would be a little more condensed. Like you have basically Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones crammed into one movie, and maybe have a little spill over to the next. But if you did that, do you think that Phantom Menace would have been a better film?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And doesn't like Topher Grace legendarily edit the prequels down into one movie, and people say it's
Oh,
actually really good?
I don't know. I think I
Yeah,
heard something about that. Well, he brought it down to one film. Oh wow, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And people
How
who
long
have
is that
seen,
film?
I'm not sure. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he's shown it to like his friends and stuff, and the people who've seen it have said like he's done a really, really good job of editing it. I think like he's kind of like he enjoys editing, so that was like a project he took on. But I
Okay.
agree with you. I think that's a great idea, and I think it would be very cool to get that. I think it wouldn't feel like Star Wars to do that. But again,
I mean, the only thing is that special effects would probably go nuts because there's so much money. You'd have to put twice the budget in. But still,
right.
it's like that pod racing scene wouldn't go on as long. It would just be more lean, but it would give it this energy that it's been lacking within both of these episodes. And really, when you think about it, when you compress them, like they're not missing that much. There's not much written on the page to warrant 2 whole movies with these films. That's my opinion. But and yeah, I mean, and for someone where when I did fall asleep in this movie, and then we get to the Yoda lightsaber scene at the end, I was still it opened my eyes a little bit, but not enough to keep them open. Like I didn't get the payoff like you mentioned before. When you plant these seeds, you get some of the payoffs, the overt payoffs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I can't come back and say, well, actually, what if you consider this?
But
I think
people, I
I
think, at the time definitely preferred. I think from what I heard from others, where they're like, "Oh, Attack of the Clones way better than Phantom Menace," I was like, "Man, I just didn't see it."
Well, it was way better for sure, but like when the bar is that low, it's still bad, but at
Okay,
least we're trending a little upward.
right. But what else did you like about it? Like, as you were definitely more of a Star Wars fan than I was, and you had definitely more expectations going into these episodes than I was, in terms of what they covered, what they didn't. What was
It
more?
took a more serious tone a bit, so I appreciated that. I was disappointed with how they handled the clones. I guess I didn't expect it to be that way. I don't know what my expectations were, but that just didn't sit well with me. At first, I kind of enjoyed watching like Yoda fight with a lightsaber, but I think deep down, I didn't like it because I think I always expected Yoda to be just so powerful he didn't need a lightsaber. And he didn't need to jump around. Like, he'd just be so powerful that, like, he could just stand there and, like, use the Force to do whatever. So I guess that was kind of dumb. I had
Right.
watched the movie again several years later. I think maybe right before Revenge of the Sith was in theaters. I think they were on TV, and I remember watching it again. So I've really only seen the movie like maybe twice or 2.5 times. And seeing it again, I think I was more fine with it. Like, I didn't think it was as bad. But again, it doesn't stand on its own as a movie. Like, if it was called something else and it didn't have the legacy and the privilege of the Star Wars name, like, I feel like we wouldn't even be talking about it. It would just be like any other just unsuccessful science fiction movie.
That's the big test, right? It's like if you take Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, remove Star Wars, just imagine if there are other characters in the world, would it stand up on its own for 2 feet? It doesn't work. I want to come to play. Like, there's so much good when I see it visually that I want to like it. I want to be totally embracing this film. But like you said, like when you're introduced to the clones element of it, I'm like, all right, I'm watching what's on the screen, but there's not enough going on for me to really enjoy here. And I can't manifest it. I need Lucas to kind of do something, like to give me more. And if I were a kid and I looked at it, would I appreciate it more? I don't know. I mean, I appreciated bad movies as I was always a kid. Would this fall into that category? And I would just be like, yeah, I love it. I have a lot of nostalgia for this film. And it could be the reason why there's so much affection for these films because of nostalgia. But
And as a kid, it's very imaginative. So I definitely do appreciate the world that you can live in when watching this movie. And there's aliens and there's robots and there's spaceships and it's cool and all of that is really, really great, and it's very inspiring, and it does captivate your imagination. So that I can't take away from the movie. Like, you might leave that movie being so inspired, like you may want to make your own movies or write your own stories. So it definitely has that. It pulls out all the stops there. It's not lazy in that regard for sure.
it just hit me right now. I'm thinking, I love the way this movie looks, especially on Blu-ray. And I'm accepting how digital it is. It doesn't have to be on film. For me to really enjoy this film, all it takes is one element. And you know what? I have access to it. All it takes is I press play on Attack of the Clones, and then I press play on something else. That's right. Press play on the song of Van Halen's Jump. Have it play throughout the whole movie.
Rest in peace, EVH.
Imagine, as soon as this movie kicks in, Jump starts playing. And it doesn't stop. It's on a loop throughout the whole movie. Yes, own the film. Play Jump. It's going to be great. This movie it kicks up a few notches there. That's how I would really thoroughly enjoy it. Because when the screenplay is letting me down, Van Halen's lifting me up. That's the way I want to watch this movie again.
Well, damn, I can't. I have nothing to say to that. I think you definitely you took us to a high note. There's no way I could surpass that.
You got to look at it like a salad. What Lucas gave us was a base, was a nice base, but you got to throw some other stuff on top there. You got to make this thing be like you got to make it into something solid. You've got to do the heavy lifting where he let you down. Okay, that's unfair. Listen, I don't normally say some of the things I say are unfair, but that is completely unfair. That's just the way I look at it. That's just me kind of trying to find a way in which I can appreciate this film more. And yes, it's ridiculous, but I'm going to do it. And I'll report back on in terms of how that experience goes. But just imagine it. I will love it.
Well,
I'm imagining you.
know.
Like, normally you think, imagine yourself watching that movie with Jump. No, I'm saying, no, you imagine me watching it.
Yeah, I'm going to think about how amped up you are.
Exactly. And again, because you brought up Huey Lewis last time with The Phantom Menace. So I had to kind of take it up a notch, kick things up to a high gear.
Oh, wow. So who knows what the future will hold with that. Well,
right.
Okay, but do you have anything else to say about this movie? Because I sure don't.
I just think that you have so much. One thing I want to say is just about the other actors. I mean, you have Ewan McGregor bringing it. You have, you got Frank Oz bringing it. And, I just think it also does lack a really solid villain. I mean, you do have, You do have the great, the villain who's fighting Yoda in this movie, Christopher Lee.
Of course.
He brings that weight, so that's there. You come on board.
They were lucky to have him. I mean, the fact that he was in this movie is like, that might be the only redeeming character. Since we're going through like the roster, I wasn't gonna go through all of them, but I'm a big Christopher Lee fan, and the fact that he was in the movie, perfect.
And a big Joel Edgerton fan, and I like the fact that he was in the movie too, and Rose Byrne. But the thing is, I think there's as soon as you cast Christopher Lee, like boom, you've got that presence there. The screenplay, you don't have to do anything with that; he'll take care of it, and he was great. It's just I feel like this was so close to being something. It could have been so close to being something really great and really standing out from the pack. There you go. That was it. Listen, even though we took a step back with Phantom Menace, I do like so much with this where it's like it's beginning to look even more like Christmas when you have this movie playing. I mean, there's so many lights going on in this film. Anything more you want to mention about it before we keep rolling on? Because listen, Harry, they're days away from Christmas, and I can't wait for the next episode, enjoying these films one by one. Anything else more you want to say about Attack of the Clones?
No, but definitely join us again tomorrow while we just continue to count down, and we'll be talking about Revenge of the Sith.
All right, let's bounce to the next episode, guys. See you then.
See you then. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to not miss a single bounce.
We'll catch you next time, and don't forget to leave reviews on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you listen to Movie Bounce.